Galactic Standard Date. Year 11356. Day 96. Sol Standard Date. 4th of the 8th, 3267. Eternal Queen Catonia kicked her servant down the steps leading to her throne as she screeched in rage.
What the hell is going on out there in my city? Why can't you bumbling idiots kill one fucking Xeno? Ah!
As she screamed, her abdomen twitched and convulsed. She walked over to the nearest servant who was trembling in a corner and stared at her with a furious glare before she grabbed the servant by her neck and slammed her head against the wall repeatedly. The servant girl screamed in terror and agony, but was too physically weak from malnourishment to fight back, and all servants had their stings removed. The first few impacts of the wall silenced her screams, leaving a whimpering mess. After the Queen's screams of rage and the sickening crunch of the servant's skull impacting the wall, her stinger lashed out, and she pierced her chest, injecting copious amounts of venom to ensure the job was done. After she made sure the servant was dead, she tossed her to the side and spat on her twitching corpse before stomping back to her throne. She sat down, crossed her legs, and took in the feeling of terror and dread within the room. She felt malicious glee at the fear and tears plastered across the other servants' faces. After reveling in the fear, she was feeling a bit pent up and waved to one of the other servants.
Number 367, come and attend me now. Put that mouth to good use, and I might just let you live.
The servant girl rushed over as quickly as she could, and got to work without question, as the terror settled in her. Bastards could hear the faint screams of one of the wasps echoing through the halls in between the sounds of gunshots, as the guards continued their futile attempts to halt his destructive jaunt through the palace. As he walked closer to where the screams had come from, he noticed that the halls had gotten significantly more resplendent, covered in literally anything precious, whether it be precious metals, gems and minerals. There were armor racks and weapon racks lining the walls that seemed to be less likely from great generals, and more likely from pompous rich people. The further he went, the higher the ceiling was built. Eventually he spied a massive gate covered in gold and obsidian murals, depicting some regal royal procession, and he sighed. Finally! Time to go see the damned queen! He gripped the walls and hefted his body up onto the second floor, where the throne room awaited. The throne room had a 20-foot ceiling, just enough for Bastards to walk comfortably without wrecking the place. He wasn't satisfied with that though, and decided that the door was a bit too attached to whatever hinges it hung from. Being the helpful guy he was, he brought the fail energies to his fingertips and burned in a handhold before tearing one of the doors off with a horrible metallic shriek. He looked down at the crumpled mess and smiled, before his eyes wandered towards the throne. He paused a little as he took in the sight. There was a group of terrified servants huddled in a corner crying. There was a body down the steps, head pulped and body still twitching. Finally his eyes aligned on the Queen Wasp herself, who was staring at him in fury as she suffocated a servant who was pleasuring her. Bastards' jaw hung open in disgust as the scene washed over him. The Queen narrowed her eyes at Bastards and yelled,
You filthy Xenos dare to defile my palace? My very throne? Why have the guards not ended your miserable existence?
The guards filed in and surrounded him before opening fire, knowing that it was a moot point based on their previous attempts, all to appease their queen. Amaranth walked out from behind him in her smaller human form and clicked her tongue in disgust. Ugh. This is why I said that the mortals are awful, Bassie. Just look at this filthy bug. She hasn't even stopped using that servant, even though she's on the verge of death. She looked back at Bassus, wondering why he hadn't made a move yet, and the look in his eyes told her all she needed to know. Oh, wow. Congratulations, Insect. Haven't seen him blow his lid like that since the last time he met Mail. Hey, Bassie, if you need me, I'll be over here, she said, as she pointed off to a far corner. She quickly swept Borrelia off his back and dashed out of the way. Bassus looked up, took a deep breath to steady himself, and then looked down towards the guards and smiled. You just let this demon rule you? Even assist said demon? Then you are just as guilty as she. Congratulations to the slave present, you've just attained freedom, he said, as he snapped his fingers, and a gout of green fire enveloped all of the guards in the room. Their screams only lasted for a second before they turned to dust. The Queen, finally realizing the situation she found herself in, she let go of the weakly struggling servant, letting her clatter to the floor, gasping for air. She stood up and stared at Bassus like that would be enough to kill him, before growling out,
How dare you kill my guards? I don't know what vile sorcery you use, but I demand you to cease your behavior and await your execution, Xeno.
She spat that last word like a curse. With a look of pure disdain, Bassus started walking towards her. Even in this situation, even now, you still act like an actual monster. Have you no morals whatsoever? Do you feel pity or remorse? To me, you seem just as bad as Mel, so I have a punishment fitting for you. She froze as he reached out and wrapped his hand around her torso. The contact snapped her out of it, and she screamed in rage while she tried to stab his hand with a stinger to no effect. A fact that made her heart drop. She had executed hundreds with her stinger, and it was weakly bouncing off of his alien hand. He began opening a rift with his sword while he held onto the wasp screen as she screamed, kicked, stabbed, and bit away. The Queen, now desperate to get out of his grip, looked to the huddled group of servants and smiled.
You! All of you! I demand you free me from the filth!
The servants, though shaken in fear at the very sound of her voice, turned away. With that, her hope of escaping his grasp burned out, and a hint of terror started to overwhelm the feeling of rage. Terror at the fact that what he wanted from her was unknown. Terror at the thought that she was in the hands of some alien, and terror from the fact that she just now realized how big he actually was. Then she played through the events prior in her head. The bullets bouncing off of him, the size, the magic, and the feeling of icy coldness she got when he directed his anger at her. The rift was finished, and the Queen stared into the realm of the dead with horror, as Bassus unceremoniously stepped right on through. She immediately felt it as soon as she crossed the threshold, the energies in the air snaking their way into her very being and tearing into her very cells. Bassus was keeping most of it out so as to only expose her to a small amount at a time, thus prolonging her suffering as much as possible. The energy ripped into her, tearing apart and recreating her body on a cellular level as the Veil tried to correct her body. Species other than humans end up cursed or dead when exposed to the Veil, and Bassus was doing his damnedest to make sure she survived by cutting off the Veil energies before attempting to reverse the process. After a few thousand tries, he actually succeeded in reversing the process. She screamed in agony as the Veil poisoning, then healing, went on until her vocal cords bled. For her, hours turned into days, days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Bassus had kept her in the Veil for a full 6 months, while she writhed in agony within his grasp. Eventually she had nothing left to give. Her mind was broken. She just stared out at the twisted hellscape of the Veil numbly. Bassus looked at her as he started working on another rift back to the palace. There. Now you have been useful. Your valiant sacrifice will be used to treat many thousands of people who were poisoned by the Veil. First part of the punishment is complete. Next, I will be removing your wings, and you will be given to your servants. They will decide what to do with you from that point forward. The Queen didn't reply. She simply stared into the distance.